This one is the story that Canadian police charged an employee of a hydropower facility in Canada with spying on behalf of China. They arrested him, I think, last week, it might have been, or a month, maybe early this week, I can't recall. But it comes against the backdrop, essentially, that Canada is going to announce a new Indo-Pacific strategy. These documents that are very bureaucratic, but actually are quite important when it comes to the world of foreign relations. That strategy is expected to be pretty frank about Canada's relationship with China. And again, that comes against a backdrop of, pretty bad relationships, a pretty bad relation with China on behalf of Canada.
This is very much your turf. You were the one who was posted to China. But one thing that this kind of made me think of was Michael Hayden, the former director of the CIA and NSA, wrote 2 books, one of which was called Playing to the Edge. And in it, makes this comparison, and again, it's coming from the director of the NSA, it's taken with a grain of salt, that basically said, look, you've got, in terms of different espionage systems, especially in cyberspace, you have the US and Israelis who sneak into your systems and then sneak out without you ever knowing they were there. You have the Russians who sneak in and leave some traces, but make sure that those traces give them plausible deniability, so it looks like it was some kid in a basement in Siberia, so they can always claim it wasn't them. And then again, and I'm paraphrasing him, this is my view, the Chinese hackers who will kick your front door in, spray Chinese graffiti and the name of their military unit on the inside of your server digitally, and then just walk out, because what are you going to do about it? And something that I think these increasing stories of Chinese espionage assets that are being, alleged espionage assets all over North America and Europe are revealing is that perhaps we in the West are not fully equipped to deal with an espionage player does not care that much if it gets caught. So much of what we've developed going back and forth was always these kind of shadow games. But what happens if you don't mind if a floodlight lands on you? Are we equipped to process shamelessness in espionage the way we prove to be really vulnerable to shamelessness in electoral?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. I think I would say that this kind of stuff that Canada caught, and there's been cases of the Justice Department in the US arresting folks in universities. I think that Chinese might respond by saying they aren't working for us in the same way that Russia does to the Siberian teenager in the basement. Even if they are MSS agents, it's not the kind of spying that we think of when we think of Mission Impossible. It's this industrial, widespread, secret stealing, understanding a system they don't understand kind of spying. But no, I think you are right. There's a broader question about how you deal with an adversary that's, you can't be shamed, right? But I think the interesting angle I wanted to just briefly mention was just how bad I think Canadian and Chinese relations are getting. As an Australian diplomat who was posted in China when things started to go pear-shaped for us, it feels very similar to what we went through, although even worse, perhaps. I was in China when China arrested Michael Kovrig, who was a Canadian. He was attached to the Canadian embassy, but he was there as a civilian with his girlfriend at the time, and they arrested him, calling him a spy and all this kind of stuff in response to Canada arresting the daughter of the founder of Huawei because she was wanted in America. And then obviously at the G20, Xi Jinping publicly rebuked Trudeau for leaking conversations that they'd had. So, and we'll post a link to that because the video is one of the most awkward things I've seen in foreign relations, where Xi Jinping says, you're behaving poorly, and Trudeau doesn't know what to do, but just hits his talking points. But the broader point here is that Canada-China relations are pretty bad, and I wouldn't expect them to get any better anytime soon. So how Canada responds, both from a government sense, what the politicians say, and what the private sector says about China, will be very interesting in the near future.
Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give us a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel to be notified as soon as we put up new videos. Also, don't forget that down below is a link to the amazing International Intrigue free daily newsletter so that you can be ahead of the news at those water cooler conversations. Thanks so much.